The question hit the Family Feud studio like a thunderbolt that stopped time itself. Steve Harvey stood frozen at his podium, staring at 11-year-old Sophia Chen, whose innocent words had just transformed a game show into something sacred, something that demanded more than entertainment could ever provide. Will I live to see Christmas? 6 words that carried the weight of a child's entire world. 6 words that stripped away every pretense of television and left only raw, heartbreaking truth. Because when an 11-year-old girl asks if she'll survive to see Christmas, every adult in the room suddenly understands that some things matter infinitely more than points on a board or prizes to be won. The silence that followed wasn't the comfortable quiet between questions. It was the heavy, sacred silence that settles when everyone realizes they're witnessing something that transcends entertainment, something that touches the very core of what it means to hope when hope seems impossible. Steve looked at Sophia, pale and thin from months of dialysis treatments, sitting in the front row next to her parents, and saw something that broke every rule of game show hosting. This wasn't about Family Feud anymore. This was about a child fighting for her life, about parents watching their daughter fade away while waiting for a miracle, about what happens when someone decides that human compassion matters more than show business. Let me take you back to how we arrived at this moment. How what started as a routine. Family Feud taping became a masterclass in courage, hope, and the profound impact one person can have when they choose to see a child struggle as more important than anything else happening in that room. It was early December at the Steve Harvey Studios in Atlanta. Holiday decorations filled the studio with warm light and seasonal cheer, but sitting in the front row was a family for whom Christmas represented something different. A deadline they weren't sure they'd reach together. Sophia Chen, 11 years old and weighing barely 70 pounds, sat between her parents, David and Lynn, her small frame made even more fragile by the effects of end-stage renal failure. For 8 months, Sophia had been on dialysis 3 times a week, spending 4 hours each session connected to a machine that did the work her kidneys could no longer perform. For 8 months, her family had been waiting for a phone call that might never come, the call saying a compatible kidney had been found. The Chen family's journey to this moment had been one of gradual heartbreak. Sophia had been a perfectly healthy, energetic 9-year-old when she first started complaining of fatigue and swelling. What initially seemed like normal childhood tiredness had progressively worsened until blood tests revealed the devastating truth. Sophia's kidneys were failing, and without a transplant, she had perhaps a year to live. The waiting list for pediatric kidneys was long and unpredictable. Sophia was relatively high on the list due to her age and condition's severity, but compatible organs were rare, especially for someone of mixed Asian and Caucasian heritage. The doctors had been honest about the statistics. Some children waited months, others waited years, and some never got the call at all. The Family Feud opportunity had come through Make-A-Wish Foundation. When asked what she wanted most, Sophia had surprised everyone by saying she wanted to meet Steve Harvey and be on Family Feud. Not because she particularly loved game shows, but because watching Steve's show had become part of her daily routine during recovery periods between dialysis sessions. Steve Harvey makes people happy, even when they're scared, Sophia had told the Make-A-Wish coordinator. I want to meet someone who knows how to make scared people feel better. During the pre-show meet and greet, when Steve approached the Chen family, he immediately noticed something different about Sophia. Her pale complexion, her carefully positioned posture that spoke of someone managing pain, the way her parents hovered protectively nearby, all signs that this child was fighting a battle much bigger than anything a game show could address. Hello there, beautiful, Steve had said, kneeling down to Sophia's eye level. What's your name? Sophia Chen, she had replied with the careful pronunciation of someone who had spent significant time in medical settings. I'm 11 years old, and I'm here because of Make-A-Wish. Steve's expression had shifted slightly. He knew what Make-A-Wish represented, knew that children only qualified for wishes when facing life-threatening conditions. Well, Sophia, I'm honored to be part of your wish. How are you feeling today? I'm having a good day, Sophia had said, with the kind of mature optimism that children develop when they've learned to measure days by degrees of wellness rather than simple happiness. The dialysis was yesterday, so I have more energy today. Steve had felt something tighten in his chest at those words. Dialysis. At 11 years old, he'd wanted to ask more, but the conversation had been interrupted by production needs. The Chen family had been selected to compete against the Rodriguez family from Texas, and from the moment the game started, it was clear that this was about more than typical Family Feud competition. David, Lynn, and Lynn's sister played with nervous energy, constantly glancing back at Sophia to make sure she was comfortable, that the excitement wasn't overwhelming her already compromised system. Sophia, for her part, watched the game with intense focus, clapping politely at correct answers, and showing genuine concern when her family struggled with questions. But Steve, who had been hosting long enough to read subtext in people's expressions, noticed something else. Sophia wasn't just watching the game. She was memorizing it, absorbing every detail with the intensity of someone who wasn't sure how many more experiences like this she would have. The game progressed through 3 rounds, with the Chen family maintaining a steady lead. Steve was in his element, making jokes about the family's competitive nature, working the crowd with his usual charm, but he found himself repeatedly drawn to Sophia, something about her quiet dignity and mature composure, drawing his attention away from the normal flow of hosting. It was during the 4th round that everything changed. The survey question was innocent enough. Name something people look forward to during the holidays. Lin Chen had just given the number 1 answer: spending time with family. As the celebration died down and Steve prepared to move to the next question, he decided to engage more personally with the audience. "That's beautiful," Steve said. "The holidays really are about family." "Sophia, what are you looking forward to most about Christmas?" The question was meant to be light, engaging, the kind of interaction that made Family Feud feel warm and personal. But when Sophia looked up at Steve, her expression wasn't that of an excited child, anticipating presents or celebration. "Mr. Harvey," she said, her voice clear, but carrying the weight that made the studio begin to quiet. "Can I ask you something first?" Steve nodded, sensing that whatever Sophia wanted to ask was important. "Will I live to see Christmas?" The words hit the studio like a physical force. Audience members gasped audibly. The Rodriguez family stopped their strategizing. Even the camera operators seemed to focus more intently. Steve Harvey, who had made America laugh for decades, found himself completely speechless. "Sophia," he said finally, his voice gentler than it had ever been on television, "why would you ask me that?" Sophia's answer came with the matter-of-fact clarity that children use when explaining things they've learned to accept. "Because I need a new kidney, and the doctors say I might not have much time left, and I really want to see Christmas with my family, but I don't know if my body will last that long." Steve felt the air leave his lungs. Around the studio, people were crying openly, not from sadness alone, but from witnessing courage so pure it was almost impossible to comprehend. This child, this beautiful, brave child, was facing death, and her greatest concern was whether she'd have one more Christmas with her family. Steve set down his cards and walked directly toward Sophia, abandoning the game entirely. When he reached her, he knelt down so they were eye level. "Sophia," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "I need you to listen to me very carefully. You are the strongest, bravest person I have ever met, and strong, brave people don't give up. They fight, they hope, they believe in miracles." Sophia's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't look away. "But what if no kidney comes in time?" Steve reached out and gently took her small hands in his large ones. "Then we make sure every day between now and Christmas is so full of love and joy that it feels like a lifetime." "But Sophia, I want you to know something else." You asking that question just changed everything for me, for everyone in this studio, and for everyone who's going to see this. He turned to address the entire studio, his voice carrying an authority that transcended entertainment. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "this beautiful young lady just reminded us what really matters. Not games, not prizes, not entertainment, but life itself. Sophia needs a kidney transplant, and I want everyone here and everyone watching to understand something. Organ donation saves lives." Steve stood up, but kept one hand on Sophia's shoulder. "Sophia, I can't promise you a kidney will come in time for Christmas, But I can promise you something else. You're not fighting this alone anymore. Everyone in this studio, everyone watching this show, we're all going to hope with you, pray with you, and do everything we can to help. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his personal business card. This has my phone number on it. Not my agent's, not my manager's, mine. And I want your parents to call me every single day to let me know how you're doing. Because that's what family does. And your family now. But Steve wasn't finished. He turned back to the audience and cameras. I'm going to do something I've never done before, he said. We're going to pause this game and use this platform for something more important than entertainment. We're going to talk about organ donation, about the gift of life, about how every person watching this show has the power to save someone like Sophia. What followed was unprecedented in television history. For the next 20 minutes, Steve transformed Family Feud into an education and advocacy platform. He brought Sophia's parents on stage to talk about their journey, about the realities of pediatric kidney failure, about what it meant to watch your child slowly fade away while hoping for a miracle. Sophia herself, with remarkable composure, explained what dialysis was like, how it felt to be tired all the time, how she had to be careful about what she ate and drank. But she also talked about hope, about dreams, about wanting to grow up to be a doctor so she could help other sick children. I'm not scared of dying, Sophia said at one point, her words carrying across the silent studio. But I'm scared of not getting to help other people. I want to live long enough to make the world better for other kids like me. The audience response was immediate and overwhelming. People stood up, not because they were prompted to, but because witnessing Sophia's courage demanded it. Grown men wiped their eyes openly. Mothers in the audience thought of their own children and felt their hearts break for the Chen family. Behind the scenes, Steve made decisions that would redefine what television could accomplish. He instructed his production team to contact every major organ donation organization in the country. He arranged for medical experts to be available for phone consultations. He transformed his show's website into a resource center for families dealing with kidney disease. But perhaps most importantly, Steve made a promise to Sophia that he intended to keep. Sophia, he said, kneeling beside her chair one more time, I want you to know that your question just started something bigger than both of us. Your courage is going to save lives. Your hope is going to give other families hope. And your fight is going to inspire people to register as organ donors. He paused, looking directly into her eyes. But I also want to make you a personal promise. I'm going to be with you through this fight. When you're scared, when you're tired, when you're wondering if it's worth it to keep going, you're going to remember that Steve Harvey believes in you, that Steve Harvey knows you're going to make it to Christmas. And many, many Christmases after that. Sophia smiled then, the first genuine smile Steve had seen from her all day. Do you really think so, Mr. Harvey? I know so, baby girl. I know so. The episode that aired 3 weeks later became the most watched program in Family Feud history. But more importantly, it sparked a national conversation about organ donation that resulted in a 40% increase in donor registrations in the month following the broadcast. Sophia's story went viral in the best possible way. Social media campaigns emerged organically, sharing information about organ donation and kidney disease. Medical centers reported increased interest in living donation programs. Sophia's Christmas wish became a hashtag that connected thousands of families dealing with similar struggles. Steve kept his promise to stay involved. He called Sophia every few days, checking on her energy levels, her spirits, her hopes. He sent care packages to the hospital during her dialysis sessions. He arranged for other children waiting for transplants to connect with Sophia, creating a support network of young patients who understood each other's struggles. 2 weeks after the episode aired, something extraordinary happened. The story had reached Dr. Michael Rodriguez, a nephrologist in Phoenix, who had a patient named James Morrison. James was a 34-year-old construction worker who had been declared brain dead after a motorcycle accident. His family, having seen Sophia's story, made the decision to donate James's organs. At 3:17 a.m. on December 18th, the call finally came. David Chen answered his phone to hear the words every transplant family dreams of. We have a kidney for Sophia. Steve Harvey was on a flight to Atlanta within 2 hours of receiving the call from David. He had made it clear to the Chen family that when this moment came, he wanted to be there, not for publicity, not for television, but because Sophia had become genuinely important to him. The surgery lasted 8 hours. Steve paced the waiting room alongside Sophia's parents, holding Lin Chen's hand when the weight of worry became too much to bear alone. When Dr. Patricia Williams finally emerged from surgery at 4:30 p.m., her smile told the story before her words could. "The surgery was successful," she said. "Sophia's new kidney is functioning beautifully. She's going to be fine." The celebration in that waiting room was unlike anything the hospital staff had ever witnessed. Steve Harvey cried with unabashed joy as he hugged Sophia's parents. "She did it," he kept saying. "Our girl did it." Sophia spent Christmas in the hospital, but it was the most joyful Christmas the Chen family had ever experienced. Steve visited every day, bringing new books for Sophia to read as her strength returned. Steve established the Sophia Chen Foundation for Pediatric Organ Donation Awareness, with Sophia herself serving as the youngest board member. The foundation provides financial assistance to families dealing with organ failure and continues to educate the public about the critical need for organ donors. 6 months after her transplant, Sophia was strong enough to return to school. A year later, she was invited to throw out the first pitch at an Atlanta Braves game on National Donate Life Day, with Steve standing behind home plate as her catcher. Sophia Chen is now 13 years old, healthy and thriving. She's pursuing her dream of becoming a pediatric nephrologist. She still carries Steve's business card in her backpack, a reminder that family can be found in the most unexpected places. Steve Harvey learned something that day that changed how he approaches every show, every interaction, every moment he spends in the public eye. He learned that sometimes the most important question isn't the one on the cards, but the one a child asks when they need hope more than entertainment. Because sometimes 11-year-olds' question about Christmas can change everything. Sometimes a game show can become a platform for saving lives. And sometimes the most powerful television happens when someone decides that a child's courage matters more than any script, any schedule, any show business consideration. Sophia's question, "Will I live to see Christmas?" became more than just a moment of television. It became a reminder that every day is a gift, that hope is worth fighting for, and that sometimes the smallest voices carry the most important messages.